Good morning, everybody. Buddy Webb, Midland, Texas. I made a Facebook post this morning called "This is where they murdered that young girl," and I think you're going to find this real interesting. It's not very long, and but I'm just going to jump right in. I did a little short write up, and I'll show you. It's not very long at all. The write up isn't, and then I put a link to Google Maps, okay? And so, you do that on your phone, you can do it on your computer, whatever. And, that's way anybody on Facebook, they click on that, and here they are, they're on Google Maps, okay? And it's basically my home. There's the front of my home right there, okay? It's 3802 Faircircle, Midland, Texas. And I want to show you here. Here's the big view from the top. Here's the Midland Home Depot store right there. I live directly behind the Home Depot store. There's actually a secluded truck unloading lane, and then an alley, and then the residential. And this little cul-de-sac here is Faircircle, and my home is right here, 3802 Faircircle, right behind the Home Depot store. And you can see, I'm going to show you, in the backyard is a large building, okay? That building can't be seen from above ground. I'm going to show you. Here's an above ground picture. There's no building there, okay? But you can see it on the block map here, If you switched over to the satellite view, okay, the aerial view, same picture, I'm going to show you, there's my home. There's no building in the backyard, okay? You see what I'm saying? That's what I was pointing out. I'm going to switch back to the map screen. That Google Maps shows a large building in my backyard that's not seen from above ground. I believe that is one of the 4 underground homes that I was told about. It was put in, I was told it was put in for the Bushes back. It finished in 1987, a safe house project. They had a budget of $7.35 million. And I believe that is where the oil show parties were held, the underground oil show parties, and that's where that young girl was murdered at in 2010 that my friend Angie told me about. Now remember, that's where this started here, this is where that young girl was murdered at. I believe that that's where this young girl was murdered at. And if it wasn't in this underground home, it's one of the other 4. And it looks like there may be another underground home in this empty lot right here, and I was told there was 4 of them. That's on 3900 Westmont Court on this one, right around a half block away. So them are, I believe, 2 of the 4 underground homes. Okay, I'm gonna get back to the write up here. And I did little short paragraphs, and I'm going to just start with the top paragraph. It says, in October 2010, my friend Angie Mungia Herrley told me about a young girl that was murdered at a party going on during the Permian Basin International Oil Show. Angie was leaving my home and at the parties in 5 minutes, and I know this because we talked on the phone while she drove there. The phone records will verify that. I believe this map shows where that capital murder happened at. Okay, and that's what I showed you, was that Google map. Okay, here was this meme that I put in there, and there were various screen grabs, print screens of different comments that I've seen people post. And this one, Chris Reed, I don't even know this man, posted to the old Midland Facebook group, and he says, when I very first moved to Midland working for a multi-billion-dollar oil company, I remember hearing talk of these huge secret parties. That's what I'm talking about. I believe them huge secret parties put on by multi-billion-dollar oil companies was in these underground homes, okay? And I believe one of them is in my backyard, and that's where that young girl was murdered at in 2010 at one of those parties because she refused to prostitute. Here's a whole different person, Jessica Lee Hadley, and she says, I've been about 2,000 of them oil field shows, and I'll tell you what, there's more than just that one girl that was murdered or raped because she didn't do whatever they wanted her to do. And so these parties are real famous for being for being wild, drugs, prostitution, etc., put on by wealthy oil men. And I know Angie, I tried to get her to report that murder, and she was afraid and told me high-level police were at the parties. And I think that's a big part of the problem, because we had some of the police who were involved in this organized crime. Okay. Tisha Ann Wilkinson Brumley, she writes, she says, I've had friends and been involved in those oil show parties. They are exactly what you say. They are underground homes. And I believe that Mrs. Brumley is a business owner here, of large business here in Midland, Odessa. This is a credible witness saying them parties are in the underground homes. And then she goes on to say, my sister used to do the oil show parties, and I got close to them before she shut that down. And so there's another witness that we could go, law enforcement could go investigate. I got a feeling law enforcement right here knows what's going on, and they're intentionally on purpose covering it up. That's what it's finally got. You have to admit that that's what's going on here. And here's the late Victoria McKinney. She died after making this comment. She says, I know somebody was brutally raped at the show years ago. There was enough for me to stay away. She no longer lives here, buddy, but moved to Snyder, I believe. The incident was probably 16 years ago. I was in sales. She says, I'll never do that again. She says, this show has corruption to the core. I've never attended because of the stories I've heard. Some were prostitutes being available for all of these guys. Some were drugs. Some were violence, as stated. Not a safe place for a lady. Okay, so there's another. So I just wanted to give you an idea of the reputation for this Permian Basin International Oil Shows parties, so how they're wild and parties. And that's where I was told about the young girl being murdered. Okay. Here is the print screen here. The link will open up Google Maps to my home, and that's what I had posted at the top. And we looked at that, and you can see there's a large building in my backyard. Well, I made a print screen of that, so I didn't have to click on the link. I didn't need the internet. And basically, what I was showing here, is this building I'm pointing right to. I showed you live off the internet. It's not seen from above ground, and it's believed this is where the underground oil show parties were held in 2010, and where that young girl was murdered at. As I said, I was told there were 4 of these underground safe houses. Actually, I was put in, finished in 1987. And then there, as I pointed out a minute ago, from above ground, you don't see that building. See, there's a large building in the backyard, but you don't see it there in the backyard because it's not there, okay? And I believe it's underground. I believe that's one of the underground homes there, okay? It's believed to be one of the 4 3-bedroom $1 million underground homes that multiple people have said were near my home and where they were hosting the parties during the Permian Basin International Oil Show. This is a phone call that I secretly recorded, and we're just going to play just a small clip of it here so you can hear what I was told by this lady. This is one witness.
Ask them about the pizza parties. They said they're not called pizza parties, but I know what you're talking about.
Right, the pedophile parties.
Yes. You know about how many feet that gun pushed through?
That
Ground it was, because he said that these houses are 25 feet under, at least 25. I even asked him about the pizza parties.
Okay, and so here she's telling me they were having sex with children under there, and then the remains of the young girl that was found was 14 to 21 years old. That fits right in with what she was telling me, those underage people. And I'm sure the people at those parties don't want anybody to find that out. Can we all agree to that? They would probably maybe even bribe law enforcement. Would they bribe law enforcement to cover up a capital murder? I don't know. One of these people was recent Sheriff Candidate Joe Lozano, who I secretly recorded telling me this was the hideout for the late Sheriff Gary Painter. That phone call is now in a viral video that tens of thousands of people heard. Like I said, it wasn't just one person that said there's underground homes here. It was multiple people documented, and one of the multiple people was running for sheriff, and he said our last sheriff used to hang out there. And that makes perfect sense because Angie was afraid to report that murder and said high-level police were at the party. Here we're going to listen to just a small clip of this.
Once I seen your son, I thought, well, I wanted to reach out to you. I don't know if did your son pass on that information?
That's all I found out.
Okay. I secretly recorded a woman on the phone who told me there were 4 3-bedroom underground homes that are 25 foot deep, and each of them cost over $1 million. She told me they were having pedophile parties in these underground homes. This is posted to my YouTube channel, that phone call. Another woman told me that she worked on the underground project, which was finished in 1987 while Bush was vice president. The Bushes are from Midland and were in the oil field business. She said the total project cost was $7.35 million. I have a screenshot of her telling me this. A guy named Ricky Ronaldo tells me that he used to live in my home, and him and his brother used to go in the tunnels under it. I have a screenshot of him saying this. A woman named Rhonda Denman Rogers tells me that the underground facility is a half block away, and I also have a screenshot of this statement. She didn't say it was 1.5 blocks, so she knew exactly where it was at.
Buddy,
Yeah, huh?
buddy, that was Painter's thing.
That was Painter's hideout. That's what Joe Lozano. This was during the election. Our press here hid that from the public. They hid that from the voting public. Something that could have changed the election. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, they were intentionally, on purpose, manipulating the election for the sheriff here because they hid that secretly recorded phone call of a sheriff candidate saying our last sheriff used to hang out in these underground homes that multiple people have documented saying it's here, and it looks like we can see it on Google Maps. Okay, you can see how there's just this incredible, huge amount of evidence, that's saying it's here, and we can't seem to get any law enforcement to do anything. Why would that be? Are they getting bribed? I don't know. Okay, let's move on. The historical aerial maps from Google Earth show that it looks like a large tunnel was cut in the asphalt behind the Home Depot store and aimed directly at my home. I believe this tunnel was used by the people at the oil show parties who were parking in the Home Depot parking lot. Maybe it contains the DNA for the murdered young girl. That's just like a Crime Stopper tip, right? Maybe this tunnel has DNA for the murdered girl. You got the remains of a 14-year-old little girl found outside of Midland. Are we trying to find out where she was murdered at, during the 2010 underground oil show parties? Does anybody wonder where she was murdered at? In the backyard and buried 25 foot underground in $1 million underground home put in by the Bushes? You think that might be where she was murdered at? Well, look here on this old map. You can see where the ground was cut behind Home Depot, aimed directly at my house. See that? That's real clear, right? I provided that to Department of Homeland Security, DHS. They're supposed to stop human trafficking, and that's what this is, right? It's a forced prostitution murder. It's sex trafficking, forced prostitution. This is what they do, right? So I took Home Depot, took Homeland behind here, Homeland Security, and I showed them this back here. 2 weeks later, I get home, they're digging up the ground and pouring concrete back there. I'm going to show you another print screen. This is a guy that says, I used to live in your house. I say, oh yeah? He says, yeah, when I was a kid, me and my brother used to go into tunnels under it. Law enforcement could talk to Ricky Ronaldo right here, and we could look right here, because right now I got a feeling that if there was DNA in that tunnel there, it was covered up, and I think some DHS agents have some questions to answer about trying to cover up capital murders, forced prostitution murders for a human trafficking ring. I showed Homeland Security where I believe this tunnel was located in July 2019, and 2 weeks later, the ground was dug up and concrete was poured there. It looks like they were trying to cover up the capital murder for that young girl that was murdered at the oil show parties. And I'm going to show you this. Here, this is a video right here. You can see the concrete coming off the truck. This is that secluded truck unloading lane that had the big ditch cut to it that was going directly at my house. I'm going to show, there's a picture of it right there. Okay, that's the picture I was showing. This is where that's at. 2 weeks after I showed Homeland, where I believe this human trafficking murder tunnel was at, that might have DNA evidence of a 14-year-old murdered little girl that got murdered at an oil show party, and then the concrete was poured there. This is lawlessness. About 2 weeks after I made this viral video right here of the concrete being poured, U.S. Congressman Mike Conaway from Midland, Texas, announces his retirement. Come to find out, his brother-in-law used to live across the street from my house. Ain't that interesting? I wonder if a tunnel isn't connected to that house that connects to this network, to these 4 underground homes and the tunnels and the oil show parties and the murders believed to it. The last owner of my home died the week before the 2008 oil shows started, and in the backyard's an underground home they're using for oil show parties, Let's do the math and put that together, right? That's 2 capital murders. That's 2 death sentences, as far as I'm concerned. And so I'm going to move on past this one here. The first owner of my home was an engineer for Pioneer Oil Company, and it's believed that he owned this home when the underground homes and tunnels were completed in 1987. Okay, because I've got documented Layla O'Brien telling me that she worked on this underground project, finished 1987. They had a budget of $7.35 million. She names the company that she worked for. I asked her, I said, did you have to sign any non-disclosure agreement? Oh, I had to sign more for that stuff than any job I ever worked, and so these are the underground homes put in for the Bushes. The Bushes are from Midland, like President Bush, right? At the time in the 80s, George H.W. Bush was vice president under Reagan. Okay, so that's when it's believed they were put in. Well, at that time, The owner of this house was Randy Offenberger, and he was an engineer for Pioneer Oil Company. And Pioneer often gives large sums of money to local law enforcement. I think it would be very interesting if we found out that somebody who worked for Pioneer was at those oil show parties. It would just kind of make sense. This huge oil company here in Midland, Pioneer Oil Company, might have somebody at oil show parties, right? And that was where the young girl was murdered at, okay? And had even witnessed this murder. So I'm here. I went to print screen, and there's Randy Offenberger's Facebook timeline. And I'm going to show you here. He's a petroleum engineer for Pioneer. Okay, that's what I want to show you, because that's really, I think, gets real interesting on this next one. And I just seen this posted in the news this last week. It makes sense that the oil companies that had people at those underground oil show parties don't want the public to find this out. So I've suspected they've been bribing law enforcement and elected officials to help cover them up. Now, I don't have proof of that. I'm not making accusations. I'm just stating facts and asking questions. Are they taking bribes? And I'm going to show you a picture that I just saw in the news this week right here. Okay. Pioneer Oil Company, Midland Police Department, $105,000. The Midland Police Department looks the other way and thanks you, Pioneer. Pioneer, look at this. This was Ector County Sheriff right there. That's Griffith right there. Pioneer gives $105,000. Let's do the next one. Odessa Police Department, $105,000. Pioneer. You look at there, and here is Sheriff Kreiner right there. That's who I've sent over about 100 fact-filled videos about this murder and other capital murders too, and it's just been ignored with all this evidence, you know. And I'm trying to think, you know, why is it being, what could make them ignore all this evidence for these capital murders? Are they being bribed? You know, ain't that interesting that Pioneer, connection here? And you know, maybe somebody at Pioneer says, no, law enforcement, we're paying you, we want you to solve them underground oil show party murders. Do you think they're leaning on them to solve them murders, or are they leaning on them to stay silent, right? It's important to remember that the remains of a 14 to 21-year-old girl were found outside of Midland in 2013. And my friend told me about a young girl that was murdered at a 2010 oil show party. Are these law enforcement officers trying to solve that murder, or are they just taking big checks and looking the other way in the face of incredible evidence? Okay, here's the homicide of a young girl. Midland Crime Stoppers. Kreiner has this case, our new sheriff. Unidentified human remains were discovered near an oil field location in Midland County, 10 miles south of I-20. Remains were a female between white or Hispanic, 14 to 21 years old. Homicide is suspected. My friend Angie told me about a young girl that was murdered at an oil show party. She was leaving my home, and at the party in 5 minutes, I know this because we're talking on the phone while she drove there. The phone records will prove it. I believe she parked in the Home Depot parking lot, went underground somewhere over there, come back through that tunnel that now has concrete poured in it thanks to DHS, right? And them parties were in these underground homes that were actually put in by the Bushes in the 80s. That's what I suspect happened. But what I wonder is Pioneer have a connection to it, and and these large sums of money that are going to our local law enforcement while nothing happens but murders of young girls. This Buddy Webb, Midland, Texas.